Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another video. I got a viewer suggestion the other day to do a video talking about when and where I like to use a round bend treble hook like this one versus an EWG style treble hook or your triple grip style, the turned in hooks, just to compare them. So you can see in this case, you've got just the defined round bend loop as the other one is stuck to my hand. You can see it's got the turned in point where it actually starts coming in towards the hook eye a little bit, the hanger. And it was a good question. And, so I figured I would kind of break this down, give you my input on it, tell you what I think the differences are. Now, before I get into the hooks themselves and whether I think one is better than the other, in my opinion, the most important thing about treble hooks is that you're throwing a sharp one. That is by far the number one thing. It needs to be sharp and it needs to be fit to the bait that you're using. So what I mean by that is, if your bait comes with, say, a size 6, I probably wouldn't be putting a size 2 on it. You're going to change the action of that bait dramatically. It's one thing to go up or down maybe a size, depending on what it is that you want to do. Maybe you're throwing a jerk bait and you want the bait to sink, so you increase from, say, a size 5 to a size 4, and you might get, you'll get a little bit slow sink on that bait. Things you can do there, but don't use a treble hook that is too small or too big. It will probably impact the overall performance of that bait and the success that you have with it. So first, make sure you're using a treble hook that is as sharp as can be, and second, one that fits the bait that you're throwing. Those to me are the two most important things before I start even really considering should I be throwing a round bend or an EWG style. So the round bend was pretty much the standard in treble hooks for a long period of time. It really was until Kevin Van Dam started promoting like his Mustad, the triple grip, I guess, style. This is just the short shank. This is actually one of his. It's the, what is this? The KVD Elite Treble Hook 2x Strong Short Shank. So it's got the turned in hooks here. And he, in my opinion, really made this very, very popular. It became an extremely successful treble hook. Tons of people threw it. Some baits started coming standard with them. The one thing I'll say, though, is we don't see or hear nearly as much about it. It's just, I don't know if that's in relation to Kevin Van Dam retiring and not promoting it as much, or if it's just a function of anglers just started moving away from it, or maybe it's just everyone is familiar with it, and at that point they're using it and not really talking about it like they did when it was newer and a new hot item in the fishing world. The point is, at this point, the point that I'm trying to make is I don't believe that these are as popular as they once were. Now, for me, I do really like these hooks. They're laser sharp hooks, but this style of hook, but I don't generally like it on my moving baits. I know Kevin promoted it on his, lipless crankbaits and all on his crankbaits. I actually kind of go the other way. I prefer more of the round bend style. And before I sum all of this up, I actually really like the O'Shaughnessy style, which is kind of a crossbreed. It's not a full round bend. You've got a little bit more, a little bit of a closed gap inside, which I think helps lock in the fish, just like your triple grips do. So if I had to choose one, I would choose the O'Shaughnessy style. So I'm going to talk about these other two, but just keep in mind, this is the one that I really like. And I really like it because it's a kind of a hybrid between the two. The point here, though, is if you're talking about the round bend or your O'Shaughnessy style, what happens here is you've got a hook point that's further away from the shaft of the treble hook. It's not pointing inward. So for me, I personally feel like I get better hookups from fish that are slashing at my bait, not fully committing to eating it, with a round bend or the O'Shaughnessy style where my hook points are running parallel to the shaft of the treble hook versus turned in. You can see in this case, the hook is actually turned in, pointing back. To me, that's really important because if a fish comes and slaps at it, I feel like I have a better chance at skin hooking that fish or catching them on the outside of the mouth. And from that standpoint, that's when I like to throw the O'Shaughnessy style or the round bend style, is with my faster moving baits. The only time I feel okay throwing the EWG style are when I'm fishing a hard bait that I know the fish are generally going to eat. So, for example, like a topwater bait. Yes, they slash at it a lot, but a lot of times they're actually committing to it and eating it. The bait's not moving nearly as fast. So, like as an example, I like these on a pop bar, right? So the pop bar, it's sitting there. The fish really have a good shot at it. The other time I'll tend to throw these sometimes are with jerk baits. And I know fish slash at your jerk baits all of the time, but the key here is the jerk bait, especially in cold water periods for me, I'm not fishing it nearly as fast. So the bait's sitting there in the water column. And if the fish wants to eat it, they're going to eat it. The difference between the faster moving hard baits and the slower moving hard baits generally has more to do with, am I creating reaction strikes? So like with a crankbait, if I'm burning a crankbait, say I'm burning it for smallmouth where I'm not even touching the bottom, or burning it off ledges, trying to bump it off stumps to create reaction strikes, I really like the round bend because I feel like I get a better shot at skin hooking some of those fish. Now I will counter all of that positive about the round bend and the O'Shaughnessy. These hooks, the EWG style, when you hook them, you don't lose them nearly as often. The thing is, I feel like I miss more fish on the hookup. Now, again, this is personal preference. Like I said, KVD promoted these for years upon years upon years, and I am never going to question anything he said. I'm just simply stating what works for best for me. And from that standpoint, I really like these when I hook them because I feel like the fish are hooked and I'm probably going to land them. But I also feel like I just don't get the same number of hookups with it. Now, going back to what I said earlier, I really like the O'Shaughnessy style, which is kind of a hybrid. So you've got the hook point still running parallel to the shank of the treble hook, but then you've also got kind of more of a what I consider a locking bend in it, where that will actually help bend it'll help prevent you from losing fish once they're hooked. The less room that bait can move around, that hook can move around, say in the hole that you've created when you penetrated the fish, generally means that you have a lower percentage chance of losing that fish. You want that really to lock in, and that's kind of the idea by tapering up that bend in the hook further back and closer to the actual hook point itself. That just helps lock that hook in without allowing that fish to shake the hook or get rid of it. So again, that's my opinion. I really like that style, kind of that more of that O'Shaughnessy style round bend. And I think honestly, I think that's what right now it's the hot thing, whether it's because it actually works better or that's what most companies are coming out with because it's kind of a new style of hook, and it's replacing the round bends and it's replacing some of the EWG style treble hooks. Personally, I think they just perform the best. And from that standpoint, that's why we're seeing a lot of companies go to it. But hopefully this helps answer your questions. I can't stress enough that a sharp treble hook that matches the size of the bait is the biggest priority. That's the number one thing out there. Once you get past that, then you can start evaluating some of the minute differences in the hooks to match up what's best with you. But since a viewer asked me, I figured I would do this video to give you my opinion on this, and hopefully it helps provide some clarification for some of the viewers out there that are wondering the same thing. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and stay tuned. We'll have a new video coming out tomorrow.